Hello all, welcome to my channel. In today's class on algal growth, we will be talking about strain selection of algae. Now, this is a step that is important before we go on for large scale cultivation of the algae. Whenever we are cultivating algae for any commercial purpose, or even when we are cultivating microorganisms for a commercial purpose, the step that we need to do prior to the commercial cultivation is the strain selection. So, we have spoken about how algae can be isolated from the various environmental sources. We have then looked into what are the media and the methods that are used for culturing algae. And today, we will learn more about strain selection of algae. Now, why do we need strain selection? The main thing is that there are many strains that are present of a particular species of algae, and each of these strains help us in production of our required or desired product. But the differences are present in their physiological and morphological characters and in the cell composition of these algal strains. So we need to do strain selection to select a particular algal form for mass culturing. When I say select a particular algal form, what are we looking for? We are looking for a high yield that can be obtained from these algae. When I say high yield or high productivity, it means the algal strain is able to tolerate changes in temperature, salinity, it is able to show efficient photosynthesis, it is having the capacity to tolerate shear stress that is there in the culture vessel. All of these come under the productivity. So after tolerating all of these difficult parameters, if I'm getting a good growth or good yield of algae, that is what is called as an increased productivity. And the other reason why we need to go for strain selection is because it helps us to achieve better harvestability. Now, harvestability or the ease of harvest of algae is based on the algal cell size and its morphology. So, these two reasons, these two characteristics or these two parameters are the reason we go for strain selection before we venture into large scale cultivation of any algae. Now, initially, the algal strain selection was done by Wonschak in 1987 as per his records in 1987. Initially, there were two procedures that were used. One was the comparison of protein patterns of the photosynthetic membrane. So, it was assumed that higher the proteins, better the cell growth. And the other method that was used for the strain selection or to select a good strain of algae was the analysis of fatty acid content of algal cells. But the problem with these two parameters is that both of these are influenced by environmental factors. So they are not very constant or steady in every batch or every culture vessel that we take. So presently there are 5 parameters that can be used for selection of a good strain of algae. These include the diurnal fluctuation response, response to photoinhibition, the amount of dark respiration and other respiratory effects, sensitivity to high oxygen concentration, and sensitivity to osmotic stress. So let us look into each of these criteria or parameters. The first parameter is the diurnal fluctuation response or response of the algal strain that we have selected to temperature changes or temperature fluctuations. Now, this is more true or more relevant in outdoor water bodies or tanks or ponds that we use for growing algae, basically in outdoor culture systems. In such systems, the temperature fluctuation is quite high, and despite us providing sufficient light or sufficient radiation, if we are using an artificial source of light, despite that, it has been seen that the temperature inside the pond is far below the optimum. In fact, between the upper and the lower layers of that particular water body, it has been seen that there can be a difference of temperature up to 20 degrees Celsius. Now, this means the algal strain that we select should have a wider temperature range for growth. As you can see here, this is the thermocline of any water body. Every water body has a thermocline, every deep water body. Now, thermocline is an abrupt temperature gradient that is formed or that is marked by a layer. Above this layer and below the layer, there are different temperatures. This is mainly because of stratification of the water. So hot water will tend to sit on top of the cold water, just like hot air rises up, whereas cold air settles down. Similarly, hot water will rise up and it will be in the upper layers, the layers which are in constant touch with the radiation. And below the thermocline, the water will be having much lesser temperature. So an algal strain that is being grown in such a pond or such a lake or such a water body should be able to resist the temperature changes, and it should have a wider temperature range for the growth. Such an algal strain should be selected. The second parameter or criteria is the response to photoinhibition. So we know that light is required for algal growth because algae need to perform photosynthesis, which requires light. But if any organism, any biological system is being exposed to high intensity solar radiation for a long period of time, it does lead to photooxidation or photoinhibition or photooxidative bleaching. So algal cultures which have high light saturation values and which have minimum growth inhibition at high light intensities need to be chosen. So they should be able to tolerate light for a long period of time, and even if the intensity varies, they should not get bleached out or they should not get photo-oxidized. Such a strain of algae needs to be chosen. The third factor or the third criteria or parameter for selection of algal strains is the amount of dark respiration that they show. Now, dark respiration is a process that is known even in plants to cause loss of biomass, loss of the total biomass. So, it has been seen in studies that 30 to 35% of the total biomass which is produced by the algae during the daytime is being lost due to dark respiration. So, this is a process which cannot be avoided. We cannot um, remove dark respiration and algae because dark respiration as a manner of general respiration needs to occur. Dark respiration is basically the respiration rate that is shown by the algae at night. Now, though dark respiration needs to occur, there is substantial respiratory loss at night, and this can impact the final biomass production capacity of our algal culture. So the strains which are being chosen should be in such a way that the rate and extent of biomass loss in the dark is reduced. Such a strain should be chosen. This is all based on the physiological characteristic. The dark respiration rates are based on the physiology of the organism and environmental conditions. For example, the temperature of the pond water at night and the light exposure prior to the dark period. These are some of the factors that can be modified, and we can produce an algal strain or select an algal strain which is having maximum biomass productivity. So we have to maximize the biomass productivity, which means we have to choose a strain that is going to have lesser rates or less minimal rates of dark respiration. Now, when we say it is having low dark respiration rate, it means it shows a high ratio of photosynthesis to dark respiration. Such an algae which is having an optimum rate of dark respiration or which is having a high photosynthesis to dark respiration ratio should be chosen. Another factor which comes into play when we talk about respiration is the photorespiration. Now, there are algae which, or we know that even in plants, it's not just restricted to algae. We know that there is an effect called as the Warburg effect. Now, in the Warburg effect, or in other words, the photorespiration, it is a process which is seen in very hot and very dry conditions. In such conditions, what happens is the key enzyme of photosynthesis, that is Rubisco, which is the full form of Rubisco is RUBP oxygenase, that is ribulose 5 bisphosphate, ribulose 1,5 bisphosphate oxygenase carboxylase. This is the name of the enzyme Rubisco. So this Rubisco is a very important enzyme in the dark reaction of photosynthesis. This enzyme is involved in combining with carbon dioxide to produce or to fix the carbon dioxide to produce glucose. Now, when the concentration of oxygen is more, now this mainly happens in plants, like I said, during the hot and dry conditions, when the stomata gets closed to prevent the loss of water. So when the stomata gets closed, carbon dioxide is unable to come from outside and we have oxygen building up in the cell. The oxygen content is more in the cell. So it is at that time we see the photorespiration. Similarly, even in algae, when the temperature is very high and the condition is very dry, the oxygen is shown to have more affinity to Rubisco. So instead of binding with carbon dioxide, Rubisco binds with oxygen, and instead of releasing the oxygen in this process, it is releasing carbon dioxide. So it is doing the exact opposite of the process that it is supposed to do. It is supposed to bind to carbon dioxide and release oxygen by the process of photosynthesis. But here in photorespiration, the exact opposite happens. It binds with oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. In fact, it is a waste of the carbon dioxide. So whatever carbon dioxide was fixed by the process of photosynthesis is being now reversed. The process is being reversed and the carbon dioxide is being released. This again is a wasteful process because here the energy is becoming wasted and the sugar synthesis is being reduced. So this again ultimately that affects our biomass. So usually algae have pyrenoids in their chloroplast which are packed with rubisco, and these pyrenoids have a carbon concentrating mechanism whereby there are pumps that are concentrating the carbon dioxide inside the pyrenoid. So as part of the carbon concentrating mechanism, there is usually no problem because the carbon dioxide is there, rubisco will bind with carbon dioxide. But in case there is a strain which has excess of oxygen in its vicinity, rubisco immediately will bind with oxygen. It will bind to oxygen. That is the nature of rubisco. So that is why I have shown you this picture wherein there is a dead deer, that is rubisco, which is being fought for by two dogs, carbon dioxide and oxygen. The one which is stronger, in this case, the one which is having more concentration will win. So if there is more of oxygen, the oxygen dog is going to take up and bind to rubisco. To avoid that, we need to make sure that the algal strain we choose has a low rate of photorespiration. Photorespiration should be least in such strains so that the ultimate biomass loss does not occur. One thing to say here is that photorespiration is also an important process because it increases the availability of NADH, which is ultimately involved in assimilation of nitrogen. So no cell can completely cut out photorespiration, but at least we can go for an algal strain which has reduced rates of photorespiration or the Warburg effect. The next parameter or criteria is the sensitivity to high oxygen concentrations. This again is related to the Warburg effect because during photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide is being converted into oxygen. Now, the carbon dioxide is getting incorporated, and so when the carbon dioxide is more, it is a happy process, it is a positively influential process, and photosynthesis occurs continuously. But when the oxygen that is released by the process of photosynthesis keeps accumulating in the media, there is a decrease in the rate of photosynthesis. So it is believed that oxygen is now getting into a feedback mechanism, or oxygen is telling the process of photosynthesis to stop. It is giving a feedback due to the high oxygen concentration, which reduces the rate of photosynthesis. Now, if there is suppressed photosynthesis, that ultimately leads to the loss in the algal cell, or we have decreased productivity of biomass. That is detrimental to us as a large scale cultivator. So we need to choose an algal strain which can tolerate the high oxygen concentration and which even in under high oxygen concentrations of even 500%, it does not inhibit photosynthesis. So in small ponds with water flow, the rates of oxygen concentration can be kept to a maximum of 200%. But in large ponds, the oxygen concentration at the end of photosynthesis can go up to 500. In such a scenario, the oxygen should not negatively inhibit, or it should not give a feedback mechanism, feedback reaction and inhibit photosynthesis. That is what we need to see. So the oxygen concentration, if it increases, it has dual effect. One is it will inhibit the photosynthesis, it will give a feedback mechanism and inhibit photosynthesis. At the same time, it will also stimulate photorespiration, as I had shown you in the previous slide. So the two mechanisms which are working together are responsible for the Warburg effect, and these two mechanisms need to be stopped. They need to be reduced, or they need to be limited. So when we select an algal strain, a strain should be selected that can tolerate even higher concentrations of oxygen without inhibiting the process of photosynthesis. The final parameter or criteria is the sensitivity of organisms to osmotic stress. Now, what happens is in outdoor cultures, such as the one shown here, there is solar radiation due to which there is continuous evaporation, and that too we are conducting the growth of the algae over extended periods of time. So, due to these high evaporation rates and the extended time period for which we grow algae, it can lead to an increase in salt concentration. Additionally, we keep adding fresh medium. That fresh medium is also containing salts. So that leads to a twofold increase in the salt concentration of the medium. Such an increase of salt concentration can cause an osmotic stress to the algal cell. So an algal strain should be selected which can tolerate the increasing osmotic pressure. These are the 5 criteria or parameters for strain selection of algae before we get into the large scale cultivation. If we are able to select an algae or a strain that is meeting all the 5 parameters, then the final productivity of our algal biomass will be very, very good. So in the next video lecture, we will look into what are the methods of large scale cultivation of algae. I hope you all have understood this class. See you all in the next video lecture. Thank you.